Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome Laura McGahey today. Laura is one of INTA's teacher trainers, and we are incredibly fortunate to have her as part of our INTA community. She brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and practical insights that has inspired many educators. Laura, thank you for joining us today. To get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your teaching journey and what first brought you to outdoor learning?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And it is very warm here today, the day of our recording. Um, yeah, I'm happy to be a part of the INTA community and grateful to be under your leadership, Dunya, and just inspired to continue sharing this message of taking learning outdoors more and regulate before we educate, because they have come through me honestly through my own teaching practice. So I did begin back in 2005, a teacher in Toronto, Canada. And there, I remember seeing as a young teacher many outdoor PE classes taking place. And I'd look through my window. We had these portables, these outdoor classrooms, and I would look through kind of jealously and think, oh, how do I begin to do that? But it didn't. So that it started to sort of percolate in my mind very early on. This idea of educating outdoors. And then I made a jump. So fast forward, I made a jump and I'm here in Switzerland teaching now. And we have this beautiful campus, big outdoor space. And I was in charge of PE. So I was, mostly doing PE indoors at the time. And an unlock for me, there's like many little steps to unlocking, taking learning outdoors more. But there was one significant conversation that took place, and it was a parent, and she was a mom of little boys, and she had asked me, why are you not taking the kids outside? And I was kind of new here in Switzerland, and it was a friendly conversation, but that her asking me was another, like, oh yeah, I should be outdoors more. But still, so I understand some teachers hesitation to take learning outdoors more, because I was one of them. It wasn't until COVID. So that might lead us to one of the following questions, but it was COVID that eventually unlocked it in real time for me. So yeah, and here we are today, where I'm gonna share more about outdoor education in a new way.
Oh, well, thank you so much for this anecdote. Sometimes we just need a parent to say something that is obvious, but we don't really think of it. And there we
Exactly,
go.
exactly.
And so you're saying during COVID was when you had a moment that made you rethink teaching outdoors. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so we all remember that time.
Yes.
2020, March of 2020, we were home. And then here in Switzerland, we were able to go back to work there shortly thereafter, mid-April or so. And so we go back to work after we're all in this sort of fear-based sort of news and situation, right? And we have to go back to work. And personally, thinking I'm doing PE, we're all breathing heavily, it's warm now, sweating, etc. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do PE indoors with this current situation?
Yes.
And at the time, the WHO, the World Health Organization, was one of their main suggestions was fresh air, be outdoors where possible, spacing. So I had this in mind. And it's like all these little drops that keep adding to the bucket. And then it was COVID that said, okay, I need to go outdoors. And having this beautiful, beautiful school grounds that we have. So that's when I began, about April 2020, May 2020, June. I was all the time outdoors with my learners. And that's when it just started to click. It was that repetition for me day after day. And that at the time, it was the urgency, the necessity of me to be outdoors, because personally, I just didn't feel comfortable,
Yeah.
even though us adults had to wear masks, the children didn't. And we didn't know enough about it yet. So I just didn't feel comfortable being in a closed in space. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's when we were outdoors, and it was awesome.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
that's a great way to start. I mean, you kind of were pushed into it, but this is
exactly.
how we innovate when we have different structures. Then we
Yeah.
have to find new ways to teach what
Yeah,
we teach.
exactly. And sometimes they say, I've heard now, is like you can get small drips of a message and then you eventually change, or it
Exactly.
can be a strong sort of emotional impact. And I think that's what it was for me. It was COVID that said, I don't want to do, option A, so I'm going to do option B. So that's what it
Excellent.
was.
And
Yeah.
so when you started teaching outdoors, can you tell us, can you share with us one of your biggest mistake or early mistake you made?
Well, an early mistake in general was not getting outdoors sooner. To be honest, I'm like, why didn't I? Yeah. But when we know better, we do better, right? Um, that's what I'm here to share about now with INTA and taking learning outdoors, more regulation outdoors, etc. Is that we can embed these practices in an easy way earlier on. But something it's just kind of what I believe and experience along the way. But I think trying to carry some of the same habits that I would have had indoors, I have to sort of adapt and always be very thoughtful and outline the new habit and the new structure for the kids beforehand. So where patterns and habits just lining up where you are in your how you move about your classroom, it's really important to establish a new habit orally and sort of methodically and intentionally with the children before you go outside, so that your expectations are clear.
Could you give us like maybe a concrete example of a habit that
Yeah,
changed for you?
sure. So in the context where I was in particular was PE, and there was one class in particular I'll speak to now that was really ideal to keep them outdoors. It was after a recess. And so what I did was really establish the pattern with the class teacher and with the students themselves that they would meet me on this bench outside where the rest of the kids were lining up to go inside. This particular group was going to meet me on the bench adjacent and wait for me there. And they would
Oh,
not go in. So we always had a meeting spot. I had to be on time to meet them before, they might go indoors. And so that was just a habit that we began to implement and use regularly for our meeting in our. So it's like a central meeting point, a specific
yeah.
time, and a specific indication. So
Oh, this is an excellent example because it really shows that it can be a small habit, something very little that we
yeah,
take for granted. But when you put it into place, it changes actually the whole beginning of your class and the
exactly.
whole outlook of the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
class.
And I
Oh,
think being clear with the teacher, I kind of jumped over that part, but it was really clear with the classroom teacher as well that they were doing this with me and I was going to be responsible for them. So that it was, yeah, a very clear communication.
ah,
Yeah,
oh, well,
yeah,
thank you. Excellent,
yeah,
excellent example. It makes it much clearer now.
yeah.
Yes. Could you tell us maybe about a student whose learning changed outdoors?
Okay, I have a really favorite example of this. So I was taking a group outdoors, and this particular child did, have some energy management. I don't put labels on children, but some management sort of issues. And so this type of child was going to thrive outdoors. But the moment I want to share with you was we were going out the front doors of the school, and the child so spontaneously yelled, "Freedom!" He burst open his arms like this and kind of did a leap, and he goes, "Freedom!" And I just my
Oh,
my heart just skipped a beat because I thought, okay, it's this type of child that really benefits very clearly from the spaciousness, from the time in the open air on our school grounds. And so,
that's a beautiful example. Really
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
example and so human.
yeah. So some of our students, Dunya, need to move to learn. And this boy was the perfect example of that he was perfectly capable. He's a brilliant boy. He just needed space and that sensory input from the natural world around him. Because, when we're outdoors, even just on our school grounds, they get all kinds of information that helps calm them. And so moving to learn sensory input, very calming space. And for those type of children, it's really perfect, very ideal.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the different changes that you've noticed when you started going outdoors with the students. Can you tell me what surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most is children's ability to adapt. So what I mean by that is when I was having this period of time, it was a good couple years anyway, after as COVID started, and then I did this full couple years cycle with taking learning outdoors in a PE context very regularly. And the children adapted. So once they became aware of our new normal, where for most of our PE lessons, we would be outdoors, they really embraced it. So I think sometimes we're afraid to change. We don't want to disrupt a good thing, or we're nervous ourselves. But I found that children are very open to other possibilities. And then they actually become excited and they expect it and they like it. And so that really surprised me in a good way, just to see their level of flexibility and adaptability.
Yes.
It's our own fears, I think, that kind of get in the way. And yeah, they become they become adjusted to our habits, and they take on our attitudes towards it as well. So I think it's really important that we, embrace, positive attitudes about being outdoors, and the children naturally gravitate towards that too.
That's right. And as long as you have some clear parameters where they know where the students know where to stand, then they're actually quite happy to try something new and yeah, just to try and then see how it works.
Yeah,
Exactly like
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, they
Oh,
can adapt for sure.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
And how did outdoor learning change student relationships? Your relationship with students, and maybe the relationship among the students. How did it change?
So the honest part here is I would love to follow a class because I've only been a specialist teacher. I see them just in that sort of bubble context of just our lesson, which has been kind. They're very patient. I find that they are very welcoming of there's space for everybody, if you know what I mean. And so people are very, the children are very accepting of that. What I would love to know, and maybe this is part of the into community, but from a classroom teacher perspective, I would love to have that feedback of how the relationship, if learning was outdoors more often and regulation was taking place at a transition moment, which again we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I would love to know how that impacts sort of the day-to-day interactions with children.
Ah, that's a
Yeah.
good question. Maybe that's something you can put in a discussion group, because I think
Ooh,
yes, we may have some classroom teachers that may be able to help us with
true.
that.
Taking note, taking note.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I have noticed in so far as my own perspective from a teacher point of view, I feel that I'm becoming more and more interested in the children's like dialogue in the conversation, as a lot of us are moving onto screens. We won't go into it, but I find that conversations, one-to-one connection, eye contact, I find that that's more and more important to preserve and to actually integrate. So I'm finding that being outdoors more allows me to feel a bit more relaxed and engage in conversation that's just a bit more fluid. And so I feel like it's better, and I get these little side hugs quite often, and it feels really nice. Yeah.
Ah, well, it's
Yeah.
another positive then here.
Yeah, for sure, for
Excellent.
sure.
We know that in our classes, we always have different groups of students. I was wondering, could you identify a particular group of students who seem to benefit most from outdoor learning?
This is a great question, and I did think about it. I wanted to point to one group in particular, but in fact, when I dig deeper and I really think about it, it's a human instinct, it's a human need. And so we all benefit from it in different ways. So this is the beautiful thing about being outdoors on our school grounds more often, is that it meets each person where they are and what they need. Nature nourishes us, nature instructs us, and it gives us exactly what we need. And I can give you a couple little examples
Oh, excellent.
of these different groups. So there was the one child I was explaining earlier who has,
Yeah.
high energy and enjoys movement. And I think this is, especially a mom of a boy, I know that this is just a human need, and there's nothing wrong with it. So the space outdoors helps them be more themselves and feel good in their skin and feel good in their space and feel good in their learning. The other type that I noticed that I didn't think about until until I took them outdoors, it was a year six group. So they're about 11, 12 years old. And I took them outdoors, the whole class, and they were doing a task that they were going to do normally indoors.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in a new context as a supply teacher. So I took the class outdoors to do a translation exercise. The teacher left them something to do from French to English. And I thought, this is something perfect. We can just go do outdoors. It's a beautiful day. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we get all set up. We're all going. Fine. We get outdoors, and I'm asking the different groups how they're feeling. Are they getting along okay? And a couple of the girls who would have worked well, yes, happen to be girls who would have been working well indoors, because I was familiar with them. They said to me, I feel like I can work better out here because I'm not, this is really from their mouths, or one in particular. I feel like I can work better because I have the space and I'm not distracted by like somebody tapping their pen on the table. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, like
Again.
I wasn't, so somebody discreet, somebody who's hardworking, somebody who, just gets on with their tasks, can focus, also enjoyed the spaciousness because they could each kind of choose their own little work environment within a specific, boundary. So I was like, oh, I thank you. I didn't think about that. So Dunya, I think one of the surprises again is that it really benefits each learner in their own way,
Yes.
and it's hard for us to know. It's hard for us to know all the time
Yeah.
until we ask.
And we ask or until we do it and
That's
see
right.
what
That's
and see
right.
what happens. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So those are a couple examples. I guess the extremes, high
Yeah.
energy and very calm, and both getting what they needed to be able
Yeah.
to work, to learn and
Oh,
work.
oh, excellent
Yeah.
examples. Earlier, we just touched a little bit, when you go outside, you want to make sure you have set parameters so
Hmm.
children know, our students know what to expect.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how does regulation connect to learning, attention, and participation, especially when you're outdoors?
For sure. Um, Happy to do so. There's a new term that I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, you're not all of this list of things, but I did hear something from Brene Brown. I don't know if you know her.
Yes, of course.
I heard her say cognitive switching, and she was talking in a different context, but immediately everything for me always relates back to teaching world. And so I was like, oh, I think that's what my students have been struggling with, is this cognitive switching. So let me explain.
Yes.
Um, and in the frame again, coming back to PE, was some teacher colleagues were always excited to drop their children off to PE, phys ed, because of course it's a time for them to move. And whilst I'm happy for the kids to move, and that's the point, I also needed them regulated. Like, I can't just have kids running. I also have a structured lesson, right? And so I thought, this is all of our jobs. It's all of our, a job to, if a child in our class needs to move to learn, that we need to offer that to them and not wait for let's bundle it up and wait for PE lesson or wait for recess. So some messages started to unlock in my mind that no, we're all responsible for this. And it helped me understand a lot better when I heard the term cognitive switching. And so cognitive switching is the ability for the brains, or the need of the brain, to adapt and change to different environments.
Yes.
So the cognition, our brains, and
Yeah.
switching from one environment to the next. Now, as adults, we're very familiar with this, and we can do this easily. We can walk into a grocery store and we can wait in line, and we can then get into our cars or whatever, right? We can regulate those different situations. Children, however, a lot of them still need our help, and it's developing to be able to regulate themselves. And so when the nervous system, so for example, let's take a moment after recess. So they've been high energy, or they're hot, or they, have full bellies because they just ate a big snack, or whatever it might be, or they had a little bit of a dispute, with a friend, or whatever might have happened at recess. They become dysregulated.
Yeah.
And this is natural, this is normal. But the part where we can help them and give them strategies is that moment where we're going to switch from one activity to another. We can help give them tools to regulate their minds, calm down, and find that inner state where they can transition in a more fluid and calm way. And something that I learned, again, I'm not a psychologist, but I did learn, is that when they're in these dysregulated states, the blood flow is going away from the prefrontal cortex to manage the emergency or the stress situation. And so when we have blood flow and the oxygen then taken away from our prefrontal cortex, it lessens our ability to be rational, to be logical, to make good choices. So this is where we can help some of our students with particular strategies to help them in this moment in between to redirect blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex, where most of the abilities to learn take place and regulation take place.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah. And
yeah,
I'm sure you have some specific strategies to help them do that transfer. And actually, I just want to say now that if you're interested in those strategies, have a look at Laura's course. It's an
yes,
asynchronous course that is Regulate Before We Educate. So then you can find out exactly how to help your students to go from one situation to another and giving them all the tools to be successful. So,
exactly,
and the
exactly.
advantage about this course is that it's asynchronous, so you can take it anytime. Now with the summer holiday, maybe is a good time to take it.
It's the perfect time. Any time is a perfect time to learn. And I think once we begin to become aware of it, that there is a solution, there are strategies that we can use intentionally to help our children make this switch from the after recess time to indoors learning time. We become empowered, right? And it feels a
Yeah.
lot more possible. Everything feels better. And Dunya, I just made this mistake myself this morning. I was a substitute teacher in a grade 4 class, and they were coming in from, I was receiving them in the middle of 3 lessons. They came in and I had my agenda. I think this is the part where we teachers need to be more present a little bit. Presence is the best present. And we have our agenda. We know the direction we want to take the class, but the kids don't necessarily, other than
Yeah.
like language block or PE or whatever it might be. And so I had the students come in and I was ready to get to my lesson, and they were not. They were not ready.
Yeah. That's right.
And I just jumped right into my lesson. And I couldn't believe it because I caught myself after. I was like, Laura, that is the exact thing that you need to use regulate before we educate for. Like, duh. So I think, but it's just these constant little awarenesses. And then once you have the tools in your back pocket, you can use them next time, right? It's like, okay, I'll do better next time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would really love to see some educators in regulate before we educate, for sure.
And I think it's important to say that it's not only for PE teachers or it's not only
Yeah.
for teaching outdoors. It's actually for any situation
Yeah.
during the day at school where
Mm-hmm.
you need to make sure your students are ready
Mm-hmm.
to access what you're going to teach them.
Absolutely.
So that's quite an important point,
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely. Yeah,
Excellent.
even more so likely for a subject that needs a bit more focus and some sort of attention to some quiet work for sure. Hmm.
Exactly, yeah.
Hmm.
I'd like to do a little bit of a move and go maybe to really practical realities because I know the teachers, they want to have tools to add to their toolbox. So how can I do this when I go to my class tomorrow? What can I do to help my students regulate before I educate them? So my first question would be, how did outdoors become the classroom rather than simply a reward? Because often teachers say, okay, if you do this, we'll go outside for a while. Well, how can we change that?
Dunya, I love that because that's one of my my favorite things to consider is that time in nature shouldn't be just a reward. It and I do see I think it's in your one of your follow-up questions, but nature is not just going through the forest or going on a trip. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson who inspired me to think of it in this way, that nature is our everyday. And so when we can begin to love the nature that is around us, and for students that's on their school grounds, they're with us most of their school days, or sorry, most of their days.
Yes.
So their local environment is the school ground. And so when we can see nature all around us, as being beneficial and important, I think that's really important for us to consider as teachers. So just to say that it's an everyday intention. And so what I did initially was the repetition, as I mentioned, during COVID. And I think that's something for teachers to consider, is to put it in your schedule. So there are definitely some classes that will work better, or even lessons, depending on what your teaching role is. But you just want to pick 1 or 2 places to start. And that's what I did. And then you build up from there. You get comfortable, build a routine, build the new habit, and it can only grow. But it's definitely to decide for yourself, to be committed.
Yeah.
Put it in the class calendar, and have a backup if the weather is really poorly and you really can't be outdoors, or it's a heat wave, you cannot be outdoors. Have a backup plan, and yeah, be dedicated to it.
All right. You told us earlier, you gave us an example of when you took a class out for a language class outside. Could you tell us, could you give us another example of a lesson that worked particularly well outdoors?
So yeah, definitely phys ed. Dunya is a great place to start, or any kind of movement activity. If you're a teacher in charge of any sort of motricité, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, that kind of thing, definitely a good place to start. But then really, it's really easy to, I can't say one or another because I have more limited experience in other subjects, but I have taken learning outdoors whenever possible. So there was a group on Chromebooks, and we just made the document available offline, and
Yeah.
we took the learning outdoors, and they were on their picnic tables, kind of wherever they could find seating in the shade. That worked really well.
Yeah.
And then I had a group doing reading, and we took our books, our novel books, outside and did our little read aloud and some novel study, some questions and answers about parts of speech. So I think really it's looking at what are you most comfortable with as a teacher, and what's a little baby step that you could take with your lesson outdoors, because it really, anything can be really switched and twisted, tweaked just a little bit to go outdoors. Today I took an art class outdoors, and so they had to do a pencil sketch of something awesome in nature. And so we just adjusted our, had each person with a clipboard. I had extra pencils and erasers, and, so just no matter how you organize yourself, but I think there are many possibilities. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of looking for what is the essential in my lesson, and how can we do that outdoors.
Yes. Okay. Um, and we have some teachers in the community that live in countries where it's not that easy to go outdoors. Either, it could be weather-wise, it's so hot, or you just don't have access to nature, if I can say. So, what would you say to these teachers who really don't have this access?
Yes, it's a great perspective to keep in mind, Dunya. I would suggest you want to look at your school grounds. It has to be safe. So yeah, definitely if you're in a place where that might be questionable, is to get with a team, look with your director or your principal, your leadership team, to explore what are the possibilities
Yeah.
in being outdoors more. I know one school I worked at early on near Toronto, I had to do a scan with the custodian, the cleaner, um, for if I was going outdoors to look for drug paraphernalia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh.
I do know that some places you have to have other considerations. So definitely do what's safe and in the best interest of your learners, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's a very good advice. Definitely. Always safety first and see if it's possible. Ask for some help, maybe on the grounds of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
well,
then,
thank you
but
for
then
that.
from there, Dunya, I would suggest, to be honest, I would suggest some of the strategies in Regulate Before We Educate, the asynchronous class that you mentioned,
Yeah.
because we can the sky above us, the clouds, the sun, the bird song that might be not near off, maybe a tree, some ants, insects on weeds, on the ground. So there are natural elements around us. Usually, if we're coming from an outdoor space to inside the school, there's some sort of nature there. So really, to look and see what are the possibilities, and maybe as one of the, can I give it away? One of the strategies in Regulate Before We Educate is to do a big mindful breath together. And
Oh, yes.
so we like breathing is is essential.
Yes.
So we can do this outdoors, and it helps again send the oxygen, the blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex, so that a calm state can be achieved. And so this is a great example of how just within 30 seconds, a few deep breaths together, We can access the nature, the fresh air on our school grounds, and then go inside if taking a whole lesson isn't available.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good
Yeah,
example.
start
Yeah,
small,
and
really small.
accessible to everybody, to all the
That's right.
teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question about a practical reality. We know that quite a few teachers or some teachers have misconceptions about outdoor learning. Could you give us one of the biggest misconceptions about outdoor learning?
Yeah, sure. I would love to if I can give two, because I did ask for
Yes.
feedback, another point from teachers, and I thought, why are more teachers not doing this? So I
Yeah.
asked them. I asked teachers in my network, and two major answers came up. Well, three actually, I should say three. So three major things came up, which was one was time. I
Yes.
don't have enough time. I have so many other things to do, which is why I then sort of developed this step in between, which is regulate before we educate, because it is outdoors. So it's a baby step, being outdoors, let's say being outdoors with your learners for a few extra minutes after a recess or at the beginning of the school day.
Yeah.
So we don't need a lot of time to get started. We just need that commitment. We need the curiosity. We need that decision making. The second thing is, again, to start to embed more time in nature for the learners in our care.
Yeah.
The second was, I don't have the resources. Like what I would do outdoors, what I would do indoors, I can't do it outdoors.
Yeah.
And so this comes back a little bit to one of your previous questions, and my answers was that we look for the possibilities. So we get to the root of sort of what that core expectation is that we're teaching to, or that we want to draw out of our students, the learning that we want them to absorb. And we find, if we know that my classroom is now outdoors in this other space that, I've chosen, then how can I also teach that same concept, that same skill, etc., outdoors?
Yeah.
So yeah, how I would have done it indoors with a whiteboard, my screen, my fancy markers, that's not going to happen. So how can I do it differently? So it's really looking from a frame of possibility with this new context in mind. So yeah, it does change. So yeah, that's the answer. Well, yeah, your instruments do change, your tools do change, your materials change.
Exactly.
The third one, Dunya, was the biggest misconception was that my students are going to be chaotic and crazy, and
Yes, we hear that one all the time.
yes, I'm scared that they're all going to run away.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely something to consider if you have a group that's or somebody in your class that's a runner. I've known of those cases before. So please always use your best judgment. And I think as an educator, you will. But in most instances, we're going to be okay. And definitely define the boundary, define your expectations before you go out, before you even start a lesson. This could be a lesson in itself. When we meet after PE, it's going to be here. Everybody sits down and waits for me here. So it's very clear, and you kind of walk through it together, building this new habit. And keep practicing it. And then, let them know of your expectations for their behavior. Like, this is a lesson. This is not recess. This is not our reward time or our restoration time. It's a work time for us. So what kinds of things do we look for to help us learn in the classroom? Well, those same attitudes and behaviors, we need them outdoors as well. So I think it's just all part of the conversation. It's all part of the construct that you create. Yeah.
It's a little bit like, if you install a new thinking routine or a morning routine, the first few times at the beginning, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to make sure you define your boundaries, you practice a few times,
Exactly.
and then it becomes automatic. Then you just have to say, okay, we're going to do this thinking routine. They know what it is, up and it goes. So what I always tell teachers is that, yes, it takes time to set up, but it's an investment. Because once you've done it, then you can reap the rewards, and then it's super easy. You just name the routine or you name the what you want to do, and then the kids know, and it goes very easily and smoothly. But yes, it takes a little bit of practice.
That word investment that you used is perfect. Like we're putting little chips in, little coins in, little drops in our bucket. Time and time again, because we know the reward or the benefit of it is really great. So it's worth it for sure. Definitely. And something that I've had to do is to go back in, and if a child runs off, and didn't quite get the idea, we the whole class will go back in and I'll say, okay, well, we'll have to try that again. So
Yeah.
remember, we were meeting around that yellow circle today. We all know where the little yellow, circle is. So let's try it again. So we go back in, try it again. Oh, and then, it kind of, we get
Yeah.
better with practice, right? So
That's
them,
right.
them too. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I'm a new teacher, and I've never gone outdoors. I'm worried. I've got quite a lot of your three misconceptions. Could you tell me what is my first? Could you give me a first, a first small step that I can do to start going outdoors?
For sure. A great first step is to register for Regulate before we educate.
Definitely. So you can have
Yeah.
some strategies in your
Yeah.
toolbox.
Yeah, because I've taken time, Dunya, to really make it clear and relatable for teachers and showing them. I'm actually on a school ground and I show these three examples. So that would be a really great foundation for a new teacher to learn and see how they can apply it in their school situation, on their school grounds with their learners. But otherwise, I would just choose again one moment in the day. So likely, as a teacher, you can identify a moment in the day which is a little bit turbulent. Let's say energy is very high, and again, we want to regulate. So what we're trying to do is get the students into a managed, focused state so they can access learning quicker.
Yeah.
That's our goal for this one here. So I would choose, for example, a first morning recess on a Tuesday. Whatever, you look at your schedule and you're like, I'm going to pick that one there. So that Tuesday after recess, 10:15, I'm going to meet my students. And what you do beforehand is you preempt your students and say, okay, on this Tuesday, it's on the class calendar, it's visible for everybody. And you keep pointing to it and say, we're going to practice this. And you can even practice it indoors.
Yeah.
So say you were going to do that breathing technique. Um, you practice it with your students indoors first and say, okay, next Tuesday here, I'm going to meet you at this spot, our designated meeting spot, and we're going to do that same breathing practice outdoors. So you're just really baby steps, as we would teach anything else. You're just going to
Yeah.
take a gradual sort of release, a gradual approach, and start and install that new habit. And then don't be demotivated, like you mentioned. If something doesn't quite work out that first Tuesday at 10:15, it doesn't work out. You missed the bell. They all came inside. It's okay. It's okay. That's happened to me too.
Yes.
I missed the moment. I'm like, okay, next time. Whew. But you just got to keep motivated and like, you just have to tweak that little moment where it didn't work and make it better for the next time.
Yeah. And do it again. Excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very
Yeah.
good suggestion.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you still two more questions about how we can look forward. Can you first tell me how has outdoor learning impacted you personally as a teacher?
Yeah. I would love to. So for me, it has definitely restored me. I think more time in nature, in outdoor settings, even on the school grounds, I began to even take my lunch outside, picnic. Even if I was by myself, I would seek more time outdoors myself because I realized how good it felt. So it's really helped me feel calmer myself in my approach with students because I do I work more at the pace of nature now. I don't get caught up in a hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
I see the seasons as they change here in Switzerland and I'm attuned with my natural environment. And for other teachers, yes, watching it could be different, but attuning with where you are and going with that energy helps you feel more aligned and more calm. So I think there's like so many benefits to taking more intentional time outdoors. Um,
I like your
and it,
example very much because
yeah,
we tend to be all going so fast with everything. I mean, it's the life, the society makes us run. I call it the treadmill. And if there's a way to get off the treadmill already ourselves and then encourage or give tools to our
yeah,
students for them also to get off the treadmill,
that's
because
right.
often they don't realize it. I mean, they're still very young. They don't realize that it's go, go, go.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think it's a
Hmm.
very good suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and your reply there makes me realize, yeah, it was self-care. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't maybe the first intention of it. I guess it was a little bit during COVID, like, okay, how do we be healthy and how do we be well? But I wasn't expecting to feel so good myself. Like, of course, you do it, you're a teacher, you do it for your learners. And so as a teacher, you really benefit as well from the fresh air, in whatever capacity it is for you, and however much time. Everything contributes to the greater good.
Yeah.
And I just realized it's put sort of joy back into my teaching practice. I feel like expansive. I feel more full of, I think because I am looking now through a lens of curiosity and innovation and expansion. I'm constantly sort of elevated. My mood is
Yeah.
better,
Oh, I'm very
so
happy for you. This is
yeah.
great.
Thank you. I think it's my real life. I think any of my friends, family would give me a high 10 and say, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just really can't recommend it enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
I think it's a very important point because it's uh, by doing all these different strategies to regulate before we educate, it's not only an advantage for the students, but it's also for the teacher. And I think both really gain into well-being, which is really what we need today.
Exactly. So yeah,
Definitely.
the beautiful part is like the well-being, the self-care
Yeah,
for the teacher is embedded in your school day. Like, how great. Like,
exactly.
it's not something extra you have to do. Just the fact of being outdoors more
Yeah.
is beneficial. Yeah.
Ah, incredible.
Yeah.
And as my last question, so we're coming to the last question. What do you wish every educator understood about learning in nature?
I wish that we all understood and really believed that it doesn't have to be complicated. Like, I think the term outdoor education is more focused or directed towards actually like learning skills that you would need to be outdoors and sort of live outdoors, or more directly pointed towards um, like a higher level of using nature as your teacher,
Yeah,
natural phenomenon, natural things as our teachers, or as our lessons. And that's great. Outdoor education, forest school, those types of experiences are for sure beneficial. But we, the everyday teacher, don't have to know all that. You don't have to do all that. Just the fact of taking a lesson outdoors, just the fact of intentionally choosing to be outside a few extra minutes after recess with your children puts value back on the outdoors. And this is what we need now. We need
yeah,
children who are growing up valuing a breath of fresh air. Um, so it doesn't have to be complicated. I think just starting small is a great place, and that's already contributing a whole lot of good. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. This was such an interesting conversation. No, thank you, Laura. We do it's and it fits so well with
Thank
today,
you.
today's society, today our job as a teacher. So no, it was wonderful.
Well, thank you
Um,
so much, Danielle.
You're very welcome. If today's conversation has inspired you to explore outdoor learning and, like we just said, student and teacher well-being more deeply, you can continue the journey with Laura's asynchronous course that we mentioned a little bit earlier, Regulate Before You Educate. You can find it on the INTA platform. And if you have any other questions or you want to speak with Laura, you can go into the discussion group. She will be giving us some more information and hopefully some more concrete examples of how she sets it into her classroom with her students. And yes, thank you today for being with us and for listening to this extremely interesting conversation. And we wish
Yes.
you a wonderful summer, a good end of the school year, and hope to see you soon.
Bye bye. Thanks again.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Uh, there.